Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is for you. Thank you for being here. Blessings. Good to be here with you. Satsang. To take a moment in our lives and stop and allow ourselves to come to rest and explore deeper into the presence of our own divine truth, which is the one divine truth. To take some time in this busy world of form and relationships and dynamics and activities and all the coming and goings, to take a moment to stop and reflect. All of these finite dynamics of our lives that come and go, appear and disappear. What's the one thing that doesn't come and go? The essential nature of our being, the true essence of our being, the truth of our being, the awareness, the presence of consciousness, awakened. Whether it's awakened to itself or not, it's there. It's kind of like your left foot. If you bring your attention right now to your left foot, you realize, oh, it's there. I just brought my attention to it. My awareness is pointed to the presence of my foot. But even when my awareness is now pointed to the activity of my life, my left foot hasn't gone away. And what we find over and over and over again is that the oneness, our beingness that is always present to receive and witness and be aware of every situation, every finite situation, condition, relationship, thought, activity that comes and goes, is happening within the presence of our beingness. Our beingness doesn't come and go. We don't stop being. We never stop being. And yet we're mostly very unaware of what that being is unless we come to satsang, either in these formal moments or in our meditations and our practices and our journaling and our explorations. We can remember our beingness, which is stable. It's an equanimity of grace, of truth. Beautiful. So thank you for being here. Who's here? Chat, if you will, to know who I'm with this morning. Hey, Gary. Good to see you, my friend. Good to be with you. I appreciate your devotion, your courage, your integrity, your heart. Thank you, my friend. Mark, yay. Fantastic. Yes. We return again and again and again to interrupt the habitual activities of the mind and recognize, to abide our being. That's enlightenment. That's peace. That's as simple as it gets. Beautiful. So I'd like to share a story and then speak a little bit more about the essence of our being and why it's so important to know that, to abide that, to recognize that, to live as who we really are, why that's so important. And then to open it up for any conversation, dialogues. And I really encourage questions. What is there a word that I use? Is there a description or a way of phrasing that you hear, whether from me or from anyone who's speaking of this divine nature of our being? Like even that, the divine nature of our being. If there's anything that is not clear for you, ask. And let's see if we can do some experiments with inquiry and with questioning to help to come to know more deeply, more clearly everything that we're speaking about and exploring here. So, a story. My sister and I speak regularly. I'm here in Bali. She's back home in Oregon. Back home. Back in her home in Oregon. And we talk honestly and openly and with vulnerability around our entire life experience. What's going on? What are we thinking, feeling, experiencing, exploring, struggling with, celebrating? We just really talk about life, about not just the activity of life. Yeah, I'm building a new deck right now and it's kind of hard and I think I'll use redwood and, we're not talking about those things. We do sometimes, but we always talk about what is happening within our human spiritual experience. Now, my sister is not I would say, a traditional devotee, right? She's not studying so much with, any one teacher or any teachers. She's not attending satsang so much in the formal way. But because we speak so regularly about, I can't help but speak about consciousness. It's just the nature of our conversations. And it's beautiful because my sister is right there. She's like, yes, right. Okay. Oh, yeah. Thank you. I see that. There's no defense. There used to be between us, but there's no defense anymore. We allow each other to help each other. We allow each other to help each other. She helps me. I help her. And we both allow that to be able to say, oh, wow, thank you. Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you. That was helpful, what you just said, what you just pointed me to. So we have these conversations. And then my sister journals. And more recently, because there are some dynamics in her life that have been particularly difficult. And rather than go down the rabbit hole of suffering and pain and fear and doubt, she's been paying attention, talking, speaking about what's going on, and journaling. She goes on walks, and these things are present in her mind. And she's not just thinking about the things that are happening in life. She's thinking about and feeling into her way of being with it all. So she's regularly thinking and feeling into and contemplating her way of being with the dynamics of her life. She's journaling about her way of being with the dynamics of her life. And she's speaking with me regularly about our way of being with our lives. And she calls me this morning and she says, I'll cut to the chase. She says, I feel more free than I ever have in my entire life. She says, I felt like yesterday, like I'm just this shell and I'm just this, I'm made of sand and you could just bump me and the sand would fall apart and there would be no more me left. But then in saying that, she goes, and yet I would still exist. And then she said she woke up this morning and feels completely clear of all of her old stories, weight, narratives, conditioning, programming, like all of that feels like it has been felt and acknowledged for what it really is, which is mind activity. And it's fallen away and she still exists. And then she said, I feel like I'm just being. And it's like encountering an immense emptiness that then I recognize is everything. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about what she's talking about in that, but I want to point out that this is all occurring simply because she is staying in the conscious conversations around the realities of being a human spiritual being. She's exploring her full dimensionality. And she's not getting so lost in the content of experience, but she's allowing herself to reflect upon and contemplate and be with her way of being in the experience. The experience is coming and going. The relationships are changing and dynamic and coming and going. The thoughts are coming and going. But her being remains, and she's been paying attention to what is that. So maybe reflect in your life as well. What does that mean to you? To not just be lost in the content of the experience, but reflecting on your way of being in the experience, not just your emotional response and your active response and the actions you take, but beyond the personal self, what is your way of being? What is the essence of your being that is infinite, experiencing all these finite experiences? That's what she's been doing. And she wouldn't have named it that. I'm the infinite, exploring the finite experience. She's just looking at her life and saying, I'm not going to just get caught up in every story. I'm going to go behind the story and find out if there's something here that is even present to the changing stories, to the conditioning, the story of self. I just remembered her this morning going, isn't that cool? It's like, yeah. And she goes, and it's so, and I told her, I said, this is enlightenment. No, this can't be enlightenment. That's a big thing. No, this is enlightenment. Enlightenment's the most simple, basic thing there is. It's not an extraordinary thing. It's just living as who we actually are. It's so simple. It's so empty, so that the everythingness of our being can be known. What's extraordinary is that that we continue to live in these storylines and narratives that we're making up and believing in our own conditioning and programming. That's what's extraordinary. Enlightenment's not extraordinary. It's not. It's just being. Knowing our being. Abiding our being. Abiding our truth. So one of the things we spoke about this morning was how she was saying it. She said, I had no idea it would feel this wonderful. And an analogy came up of imagine that you've spent your entire life carrying around a heavy backpack full of rocks and you've never taken it off. You wouldn't actually know just how heavy it was because you've never known its absence. And when the density of our egoic identity and our story and all of our conditioning and programming and problems and thought forms and beliefs, when all of that is seen for what it is and we allow it to fall away, it's like taking off this backpack and then waking up in the morning and going, what is this? What? Oh my God, what is? Wow, I didn't know. Rumi says, your task is not to seek for love, but to seek for and find within you all the barriers you have built against it. Yeah. Now, I differ with that a little bit. I think there is the value of seeking for love, but not solely seeking for love, but a lot of attention on recognizing what is this density? What is this weight that I carry? And if I were to take that off, if I were to take off my story of self, my identity, my personal identity, would I disappear? No, I wouldn't. my being would remain. This is what this journey is. It's recognizing the inherent nature of our being. And in my sister's case, it was waking up this morning going, I just feel free. And the emptiness, we clarify this, the emptiness is simply empty of what you're used to. It's not actually empty. It's empty of what you're used to, which is the coloring of life with your narratives, with your storyline. And it's empty of that. And initially it feels like, well, there's nothing going on anymore. Like the what I'm used to seeing or experiencing is no longer there. It feels empty. But when we rest as that and abide that, we realize that density has fallen away. That coloring of our lives with our story has fallen away. And then the infinite richness, the infinite beingness can be known, the everything. The boundless nature of being, the infinite nature of being can be known because we have encountered, we have emptied the story. We have emptied the story. We have emptied the personal self. And then we can know the infinite self. So I hope this is helpful. And I'm curious, how do you relate? What barriers might you hit? In your journey, in your path, you're here, you're paying attention. In your journey, where do you find like, yeah, I get that, but then I trip on this little point, or I hit this edge, or yes, this is my experience too, and I want to share about the miraculous nature of knowing my being. And again, it's not so much a miracle; it's just being. It's just knowing and abiding who you already are, the essential nature of being. It's the most ordinary thing there is. We call it extraordinary because it is so different than the way we're typically living our life, which is insane. So the sanity seems insane until we start to see that what has normally been called sane is insanity. It's astounding. Ultimately, what we all are is the stillness in the background of all experience. Experiences come and go within the stillness of being, within the awareness of being, within the unwavering awareness and stillness of being. That's what we're here for. To recognize that, to abide that, to allow that, to know that. That's freedom. We're seeking what we already are. Yeah. So search within. What questions arise? What experiences show up? Quiet the mind, and you will know what moves through your heart. Go beyond the noise of your mind and even of your life activities and recognize the presence of the stillness of your own being. Noise comes and goes. No noise sustains. All noise is finite, ever changing. Mark says, I just make it a practice to quiet the mind for at least 20 minutes a day. Yeah. And I'd be curious, Mark, and if you want to jump in on a conversation, I'd love to have it, otherwise in chat. But I'm curious. When you quiet the mind, what is the experience? What is known? What changes? Because our meditations are not simply to quiet the mind. That's a part of it. Or to generally quiet the mind and not to struggle when the mind isn't fully quiet. And to perhaps allow the mind to then, instead of having its habitual narrative, to ask questions. Who am I really? What's happening right now? What is present? My thoughts come and go. Do I come and go? Who is I? Right? He's at the airport. Okay, yes. Got it. Yes. It's important to allow in our meditations to inquire. What are the dynamics of this human spiritual being? Catching you on my connection. Awesome, Mark. Right on, man. That's diligence. That's devotion, right? I'm at the airport. Hey, Satsang's going on. To tap in. Because, man, the airport is absolutely chock full of stories. Activities, finite activities, things coming and going and appearing and disappearing and changing. And there's so much dynamics. And to be able to sit in activity of dynamics as the presence of peace, beyond story, beyond narrative, just the witnessing perspective is a wonderful practice. Just a wonderful practice. Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. So I uploaded yesterday to the Oasis 2 new quick inspirations. And one of them was know thyself. We've talked about this before. That's the essence of this journey of these contemplations and inquiries. Know thyself. And I wanted to reiterate today why that's so important. And what it means, right? Know who I am. Know who I really is. What I really is. Know who I really am. Am I my story? I think we're all clear. No, I'm definitely not. That's all conjecture and a layering, a constructed self based on stories, programming, conditioning, what I learned from mom, dad, school, society, consumerism, marketing, etc. That's all a self that I've created, that's been created in my own psyche. That's not who I am. So who am I, really, if I'm not that? So if we look at our lives, every single experience we have is predicated upon our sense of I. I like that. I don't like that. Who's that I? Is that the ego I, the afraid I? The afraid I doesn't like that. The afraid I needs that. The emptiness of I needs that. The the story of I that thinks I need to be successful in order to be loved. How is that reacting in the world? I like that. I don't like that. I want that. I need that. I believe this. I don't believe that. I struggle with that. I'm really angry at that. I is at the center of everything. And the question is, which I is living your life? For most people, and what we're doing here is finding our way through the perceiving of life through the construct of I, through the story of I. We're letting that fall apart, fall away. We're letting go of that and recognizing there is an I that is unwavering, that is the oneness, an I of witnessing, an I of consciousness, an I that is an equanimity of peace and grace. So know thyself, to know that true I, and allow it to come forward. Abide its presence, recognize, allow, honor, accept its presence, and let it come forward, and let the ego story fall more into the background and loosen and soften and fall away, so that the personal self can be in service to the wholeness of our being, rather than the wholeness of our being in the background, clouded by and obscured by the personal self with all of its stories and narratives and needs and activities. Let that soften and relax and fall into the background, and then let the wholeness of our being be known, be illuminated, expand into the higher consciousness of our being, and let that live this life. If we don't know who we really are, then we are living life falsely. We are not living an authentic life because we're living everything through a conditioned story, taking everything in, processing it through the conditioned story, and believing, thinking, reacting, behaving. And then perhaps that starts to influence our devotions. What do you want? Perhaps it's, I want to be free of living this life like so thoroughly through my conditioned storyline. I want to live this life directly from the wholeness of my being. So I can be free to just be and remain in my being no matter the changing conditions of my life. Would that not be freedom? Right? I'm changing my villa. I'm moving from the villa that I'm in right now to another one, signing a New Year's lease in another one. And the new one, it's been a wild, dynamic storyline with all sorts of players. And it has not been straightforward, as I'm finding very little in Bali is straightforward. And it's been a really beautiful and enlightening experience to watch all these dynamics play out and stay absolutely steady through all of it. At times, doubts and uncertainties and questions, and being with those, but not getting wrapped up in anyone's drama. Asking questions and looking into my questions and doubts and uncertainties, and am I being scammed here, or is this legitimate, and who's this player, and what's their real motivation, and they're presenting themselves as this, but what's really true? To go ahead and do all of that, but to never leave the peace of being. It's there. I see. Even I'm saying it. I want to say it's an extraordinary experience. It's not extraordinary. Oh my gosh, it's so it's just meeting life as who I am. And it makes a difference. In my own life, I'm not living in a stressful, worried dynamic of life. And the people who I'm working with, who are the real genuine players, and they're responding. They know they can trust me. My sense is that they can trust me more than they can trust themselves. And there's a freedom and there's a desire, and they're leaning into the relationships and they want more because they're encountering somebody who's more steady, typically, in their equanimity than they are. You know, at one point at the new villa, there was two of these players, and man, they were in a full-on, like, yelling at the top of their lungs match. How dare you? And starting to get physical and pushing. And a calming influence was valuable. And I remember just putting my hand on the heart of one of the guys and saying, "Hey, find your peace, brother. Because your peace is your power. Your anger is not your power." And it's a guy from Libya. He's kind of hot-tempered, but he's a good guy. And he's trying his best. But, you know, he's got his temperament and his conditioning. So his way of solving conflict is to beat it up, to hit it, to fight it, to dominate it. And I just held my hand on his heart, just looked him in the eye and said, "Hey, my friend, your peace is your power. Your anger is your weakness. It may dominate a situation, but it does not leave you stronger." And he got it. And he thanked me later. But this is what the world needs. The world is going crazy right now because the enlightenment of grace, the enlightenment of consciousness is happening. And those who are deeply in their ego stories are freaking out. They feel that they're going to lose control and dominance. And they are. And so there's going to be a lot of confusion and difficulty and upset in the world. And more we need to learn how to be in our truth, remain in our grace, remain in our hearts. And we don't remain necessarily in the heart. The heart is just the awareness to the heart opens us to the infinite nature of our grace. So these are the benefits of knowing and abiding our being. I invite you to review anything you want in your life. Think about any relationship you have. Think about any relationship you have. And if I were to say, "Tell me about it," you would start to say, "Well, it's like this," or "It's like that." And then I might ask, "Has it always been like this or that?" And you might say, "Oh, no, it changes. It's sometimes like this, and it went through that, then it became this." And if I asked you to think about an emotion, a strong emotion that you've recently had, or that you've ever had in your life, and then I said, "Tell me about it," you would describe, "Oh, and then I was really angry, or then I was really upset, or then I really struggled, or then I was really hurt. Then I was really in pain, and then I was really happy." You would be telling me about the experience as it arose, it appeared. And then after a while, it disappeared, it changed. So it is finite as well. Emotions are finite. Relationships are finite. Experiences are finite. Our perceptions and sensations are of the human nature of our being. It's how we know the world, through sensations and perceptions, primarily. Sensations being physical sensations, the feeling of your feet on the ground. Hunger is a sensation. Thirst is a sensation. Tiredness is a sensation. Excitement is a sensation. The feeling of my cloth on my shirt is a sensation. A smell is a sensation. They all come and go. They're all finite. But if I were to ask you then so anything I ask you to describe, you would describe it because it has an objective quality. There's an objective nature to it. There's a form aspect to it. There's a dynamic to it that is finite, which means it has edges. It is contained. It's finite. It has definition. But try this on. Right now, recognize that you are having the experience of being. And actually, you've always had the experience of being. You've never not been being. Ever. Not even for a second. Not even for a millisecond. You've never not been just being. And if I ask you to tell me about the experience of being, feel into that. See what comes up. How would you describe being? Feel into your direct experience, your being. Thoughts come and go, beliefs come and go, emotions come and go, activities come and go, relationships come and go. How would you describe the being? You might find that it's difficult to describe. You might find yourself falling silent. Or if you use words, they might be words like, well, it just is. I just am. You might say it's empty, which is really saying it has no boundaries, which means it is infinite. So in meditation, you can practice with discerning the difference between the finite and the infinite. Whatever comes and goes is not the essence of you. Even your thoughts, beliefs, feelings, emotions. What is the nature of your being? It just is. Mark says, we are here to serve. Sometimes that can be very difficult. For whom? The experience of difficult arises on behalf of whom? Because maybe somebody standing right next to you who's being called to serve in the same way doesn't find it difficult, or finds it difficult in a different way. So is the difficulty absolute? Or is that a dynamic of your conditioned I? See how important it is to ask the question, who am I really? What's happening right now? Because otherwise we collapse into the difficulty and we stop there and we're just, yes, it is difficult for the personal self, but then to know that that is a finite experience happening within the infinite presence of being, or within the presence of infinite being. And I am that. And then we can maybe be with the difficulty and not get lost in the difficulty, not get swept away by the difficulty, but simply be with the difficulty. Does this make sense? When you sit with this invitation to abide, to recognize your being, what does that mean for you? What happens? Somebody might say, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Somebody else might say, yeah, I'm there, but then there's a struggle. And then, like Mark said, it can be difficult. And then it's a perfect thing to say because that's what we're experiencing. But it brings up the conversation. Beautiful. Let's talk about that. Difficult. For whom? Does your being find it difficult? Or is your being witnessing your personal self, your ego self, struggling? The witness and the struggle happen simultaneously, or can. The struggle is happening on behalf of the storyline, the narrative, with it says, but my belief system and my thoughts and my conditioning and programming, these all say that this is to be judged in a certain way or discerned in a certain way. And that is maybe changing, and then we can change that perspective and have a little bit different perspective and go, oh, wait, no, everything happened for a reason. That's a perspective, and that's a belief, and maybe it's a relieving belief. And so we feel that, and we feel different. So we were feeling difficult. Now we're feeling a little bit less difficult. But that is happening within the presence of being, within the witnessing presence of being that never found anything difficult. It just noticed the experience of difficulty coming and going and modifying and changing. The freedom that you seek is the freedom of what you already are. Message here. Gary. Okay, I need my glasses for this one. Gary says, someone once said that man is the sum total of our life experiences. Well, man may be, yes, the human. It's probably better said that our psyche is the sum total of our life experiences. Yeah. And our true self being the witness consciousness. And our true self being the witness consciousness. The nature of this being is more allowing. Not just more allowing, but just allowing. The nature of this being is allowing. Allowing is not an activity of mind that is more or less. Allowing is not an activity of mind. True allowing is the very nature of our being. It's its nature. It's its essence. Yeah. When known through that perspective, those experiences become cleaner and easier to navigate. Beautiful. Take it a step further. I really love you, Gary, and your way of exploring. So take it a step further. When known through that perspective, okay, perspective is a human dynamic, it's a mind dynamic. Perspective and sensation is the way that the mind knows the world. So when we say when known through that perspective, those, quote, experiences become cleaner and easier to navigate. Take away the perspective part. When known by that truth, by that being, those, quote, experiences, they don't even become clear and easier to navigate. When known as our pure being, they simply are. They simply are. It's not even, language is tricky here, but I love this. They don't even become clear and easier. In a sense, they do. But from the witness perspective, they were never not easy, and they were never not clear. We drop the perspective. We drop all perspective. This is it. We drop all perspective. And we just be. We abide our beingness. That's not a perspective. Yeah. Yes, just known, he says, yes. Just known. We are the knowing. And not the knowing that comes and goes, the pure presence of knowing that witnesses the shifting perspectives that the mind places on life in order to try to make it cleaner and easier. Perfect. When seen through that perspective, when known beyond all perspective, right? Because when we see things through a certain perspective, that perspective changes. And now we're seeing it through a different perspective. And now we're trying on that perspective. And when we let all perspective go and we just recognize and abide being, we don't have to worry about holding on to a particular perspective or managing a perspective or even strengthening a perspective. Or letting go of a perspective. Go beyond all perspective. Consciousness is not a perspective. Consciousness is aware of all changing perspectives. Yeah. This is it. We have these conversations. We play with doing our best to say, this is currently how I'm describing it. This is currently how it seems to me. And then we play with the nuance and we look and we go, maybe, maybe it's like, oh, wow. Oh, beyond even perspective. Okay, let me try that on. Being doesn't change its perspective. It doesn't even have a perspective. We tend to change our perspective, our lens, our belief systems in order to try to make life easier and cleaner. We recognize that some of our conditioned perspectives or programmed perspectives are not helpful. And so we try to clean them up or change them or replace them with different perspectives. And life seems to be easier and cleaner. But only as long as you hold that perspective. Because then you're kind of in the mode of clinging to a new perspective. All right, now I've got to get this perspective to stabilize, and it won't. Perspectives don't stabilize. They can seem to stabilize more than maybe they used to, but ultimately a perspective is a activity of mind. So we can find ourselves trying to maintain a positive perspective, a healthy perspective, a loving perspective, a compassionate perspective. And those are changing. We're trying them on. It's like glasses, like looking at white snow and saying, I'm tired of, and the glasses are rose colored and that doesn't seem right. Let me take those off. I'm going to put on these other glasses and these glasses are blue. Okay. That's different and maybe more pleasing, but it's still not the pure snow. I'm still seeing things through a perspective. And we keep changing our glasses. What if you just either took them off or maybe put on glasses that had no perspective, no change? You would simply see things as they are without filtering it through any perspective. And I love the fact that you asked this, Gary, because I've never felt into it this way. There's a shift happening in here. I've never felt it. I've never thought about that. What if you live life beyond all perspective? Because perspective is an activity of mind. And of the personal self, the perspective and sensations, the tactile sensations, the sensations of emotions and feelings all belong to the personal self. When we stop being so identified as the personal self and let that fall more into the background and recognize our essential being, we realize it doesn't need any perspective. It just is. It just receives everything in a state of allowing. A state, a grace of allowing. Mark, if you're still at the airport, if you're still with us, you can try this on. Just look around at all the activity and recognize that everyone is filtering just about every moment of their life through their held perspectives. And imagine just being so free that you don't get caught up in any of it. I was at the airport in Portland 2 Christmases ago, or Thanksgiving. It was a holiday, big storms coming through, and I had 5 or 6 flights canceled. And then some of them were even canceled after I got on the plane. Like I got on the plane and then the pilots, because the flight was so delayed, the pilots' time ran out where they were legally safe to fly. And it's like, all right, everyone get off the plane. And another night in a hotel. And I think I got all the way to Seattle, but then those flights got canceled. And it was the same thing. Watching all these people stressing out and freaking and storytelling around meaning and dynamics and consequence and all of this. And it was such a liberating feeling just to walk through the entire experience and never be bothered by any of it. Just being. It's the ultimate liberation. It really is. Okay. So in your meditations, notice that you can describe just about everything in your life because it's got a quality to it. And then see if you can describe the being, the unwavering being. See if you can describe it accurately. And you may use a adjective, unwavering, peaceful, maybe even loving. But then you find even those descriptors are partial. They can't really describe or encapsulate the infinite. How can you encapsulate the infinite? How can you encapsulate the infinite? All right, my friends. It's feeling like enough has been said today. And let's just sit for a few minutes. And if a question arises for you, a share, then share. Just be with your breath. Beyond everything that comes and goes, arises and passes, appears and disappears, is born and dies, beyond all finite experience. You exist, unchanging. The infinite nature of your being. What more is there? What could be more important than knowing, abiding your true being? The absolute I of I am. I just am. And even when the ego says, yeah, but this condition's happening. Yes, but this relationship's doing this. Yes, but this situation's doing that. And the being says, yes, it is. So we will take appropriate steps and measures and choices. And all of those can happen without leaving our ground of being. What if you lived every moment of your life awakened in the abidance of your true being? Letting that be the dominant self, the forward-facing self that life meets, the first self that life meets. And then the egoic self is in the background, maybe still trying to tell its stories and demand its preferences. But that'll quiet down. If you're not giving the ego identity such authority and power, it will lose its authority and power. And you can be anywhere. I think it was Mark who said, 20 minutes a day, I allow myself, I give myself that gift of just sitting in stillness in my being. And what I would invite is to also introduce micro meditations, which means in any environment you're in any moment of your day, stop. Simply take a few breaths and follow the breath down into the portal of stillness, the heart, and recognize and remember your being and name it. Ah, there I am. Okay, yes, there I am. Okay. And be with your being and notice the qualities of being. Notice the nature of being. It's a remembrance again and again and again and again and again. It's a remembrance of who you really are again and again. That's called awakening. Awaken is who you really are again and again and again and again and again and again and again. It's like coming out of a deep sleep. If you've been in a deep, 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 deep dream of self, you don't just pop open and wake and go, okay, whoa, wow, this is different. Okay, this is who I am. Typically, it's you wake up and go, oh my God, oh wow, this beingness is just so sweet. Oh, then that happened. Oh, and I'm here. And then your activity of mind takes over again, and the ego mind takes over again. And then you choose again, maybe do another micro meditation, using the metaphor of self that we've learned, using your different analogies of the sky and the weather, the movie screen and the movie, using your analogies, using your metaphors, using your self-inquiries. You can return to a sense of truth, a sense of self, again and again. And every time it's like, okay, oh, wait, wake up, wait, who am I? Oh, that's who I really am. Back in the story. Wait. You do that enough, you're going to stay awake. Waking up takes time, but it ain't going to happen without attention. And like we started today's call, in my sister's case, it is, she meditates, she journals, and she has conscious conversations. Those are the three primary tools that she uses. She's not a student as much, except for in our conversations, there's some dynamic of I'm refreshing her with a way of knowing herself, of exploring her life, her way of being. But mainly journaling, meditation, reading, so there's study there, and conscious conversations. Conversations about the reality of our being. That's what she's applied, and she's had it, and as of this morning, she's in a beautiful state of enlightenment. And then we talk about that so she can understand, because initially she's just going, I don't know. She even said, I don't know quite what's happening, but it feels good. And then we were able to talk about it, and she was like, oh, that's what's happening. Okay. Like if you're out on a hike and you suddenly find yourself in this amazing place, but you don't know how you got there, it might be hard to get back there again. But if you're there and you say, whoa, where am I? And somebody says, oh, here's where you are. Here's how you got here. You can start to have that pulled out perspective and go, oh, okay. That's helpful to know what's really happening so that I can perhaps find myself in this awakened knowing more easily again. So stay in your conversations. New message. Yay. If the ego becomes the proverbial ignored guest, it does dissolve to the background more and more. Absolutely. A consistently unbelieved thought will lose its power over time. A consistently disempowered activity of mind will lose its power. One of the lessons I've got in the Oasis. Oh, and also, if you're in the Oasis, you check your email, because I just gave every current member of the Oasis free access to my Living Beyond the Noise course. It's a comprehensive course, and in that course, there is a lesson around not believing your old stories. There's a couple of lessons. And what tends to happen is when the old narrative projects itself and you don't argue with it. See, this thing, normally we argue with our disempowering thoughts. No, that's not right. I am lovable. Let me tell you why I'm lovable. Let me tell you why I'm worthy. Let me tell you the truth. Well, anytime you're in an argument, what's happening? You're projecting your perspective, if you will. And then the old narrative, the old conditioning is saying, this is the way it is. And you're saying, no, this is the way it is. And every time you engage in that argument, they're actually strengthening their position. But if you stopped arguing, even with your own disempowering thoughts, they would get so unused to projecting and strengthening and articulating their position, they would start to forget their own position. So literally after a while, they'd try again and they'd say, look, I just want to remind you that, oh wait, what's the story again? Hold on. We haven't talked about this for a while. Wait, what's, okay, something about not trusting yourself or being careful oh God, I don't remember. Just be careful out there. It loses its power when you see it for what it is. Activity of mind, my friends. And, DNA, an embedded emotional traumatic response that gets interpreted by the mind. But all of these things are not the essential nature of your being. The essential nature of your being can be present to love everything that needs to arise into that love, to be loved, to be accepted, but not argued with and not pushed away. Because you only push away something that is of real, it's powerful. I need to push it away. If you don't push it away, you let it wash over you. You realize that ultimately it's not powerful. It's only powerful when you give it power. A belief is only powerful when you give it belief. Yeah. The ignored guest. Yeah, that's scary. That's from one of our lessons. If the ego becomes the proverbial ignored guest, it does dissolve to the background more and more. Yeah, you just don't give something such power and argument. It's going to lose its power. Now, this is what I call temporary spiritual bypass. To not engage the suffering, the storyline, to get some distance from it, to see it for what it is, to not argue with it or even fight it. Getting that distance, that perspective that says, the true I doesn't need you to go away because I am unbothered by you in the first place. But the true I, getting that distance, then that's love. That's pure love. And then you can bring that love back to the pain, to the story, to the conditioning. And then you can engage it, but not as an argument or a vilifying or needing it to go away, but as pure love. Simply saying, tell me about yourself. Where did you come from? Where did you come from? You want to tell me about your pain, your sadness, your grief, your doubt? You want to tell me your story? You can tell me your story. We can look at where it came from. We can dissect it and understand that it's not really yours and it was given to you and handed to you and embedded within you, but it's not really you. But first, it's valuable to temporarily, spiritually bypass the story so you can come to rest in your true, unwavering love that is unbothered by any story, and then bring that love back to meeting the pain or the confusion or the upset. Yeah. Okay, my friends, we're going to wrap this up today. Deep breath. You already are what you seek. Play with going beyond all perspective, not trying to hold a different perspective or hold a more beneficial perspective or a healthier perspective. Not using any mental concepts to come back to peace. Beyond all perspective, there is the unwavering grace of stillness, of being. And I am that. Whenever you find that deep, deep peace, name it. I. There I am. I am that. All right, blessings, my friends. I believe we have breath work either next week or the week after that. And we continue on the journey. As an Oasis member, check your email because you've been given access to my signature course. It's been years in the making. Much love. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here, for exploring your own divine grace. All right, much love.